November 15, 2017, 1:29 p.m. EST. NAFTA talks are picking up on Wednesday mostly where they left off a month ago, with tension and animosity in the air. On Wednesday, cabinet-level officials responsible for NAFTA from all three nations said they'll skip attending the talks for the first time and leave discussions to their negotiating teams. It's the latest sign that reaching a deal isn't imminent. On Saturday, Mexican Foreign Minister Luis Videgaray made a thinly veiled threat to scale back efforts to police its border with the U.S. if it didn't like where renegotiations were heading. Then on Tuesday, U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross warned that the Trump administration was losing patience with the proceedings, and Canada used NAFTA specifically, a section the U.S. wants to eliminate to file a legal challenge of U.S. softwood lumber duties. At last month's round, the parties extended talks through March, abandoning a December deadline, after the U.S. introduced its toughest proposals that were essentially rejected by Canada and Mexico. The challenge remains to seal a deal before politics overwhelm the trade agenda next year when Mexico holds presidential elections and the U.S. has congressional midterms. The fifth round of talks are beginning with technical discussions from Wednesday in Mexico City and will formally kick off with the chief negotiators on Friday through November 21. The cabinet-level officials from the three nations in charge of NAFTA won't attend Round 5 after they held substantial discussions at a Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation gathering in Vietnam last week, according to a joint statement Wednesday. The three will be in constant communications with negotiators, who they've instructed to focus on making progress on proposals that have already been put forward, the statement said. The session is expected to yield deals on smaller elements to modernize the 1994 accord, while negotiators aren't expected to delve too deeply into the high-profile U.S. demands. Negotiators are working under the pressure of President Donald Trump's repeated threats to pull out of the North American Free Trade Agreement. Secretary Ross said on Tuesday it would be an enormously complex thing to get a deal by the end of scheduled talks in March, though he expects some sort of agreement for Trump to consider. NAFTA is on a very short time fuse, he said. Bombshell U.S. demands punctuated the fourth round of talks in Washington, sending the three ministers on their way after a closing statement that saw them exchange their strongest barbs yet. With U.S. lawmakers focused on tax reform, expectations are that the key battleground issues will more or less be punted into 2018. The most contentious U.S. demands are on dairy, automotive content, dispute panels, government procurement and a 5-year sunset clause, but there are 28 negotiating areas in total. The tough proposals have been essentially rejected by Canada and Mexico, as all parties wait for the other to blink first. Ross stood his ground this week, saying the idea of a 5-year sunset has been part of the president's thinking since the campaign. Mexican Economy Minister Ildefonso Gallardo said Tuesday that his team will ask the U.S.